Good morning, English 1. This is Mr. Huling here, making you a short video on how to use a scoring rubric to grade your argumentative paragraphs. Now, in order to watch this video, you need to have first watched and read the Student A sample. So if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and pause this video, tilt your screen, and read through the student sample. Okay, now that you've read this Student A sample, we're going to talk quickly about what a rubric is and why we use them in English 1. For those of you who don't know, a rubric is a set of standards or criteria that allow a grader to score a piece of writing. Now, what that means is that there are going to be multiple sections on your rubric for different areas of your writing. You'll notice that this rubric is broken into 3 categories: ideas, organization, and use of language. Now, each of these is going to be very unique and it'll cover a different kind of criteria. Now, you'll also notice that you have 5 levels on your rubric that range from A all the way down to F. Inside of each of these boxes, you'll find very specific language that describes what an A for ideas would look like versus what a C would look like for organization. There's a short description in this box that you're going to be using when you score a piece of writing. You'll notice that the language inside is different than, for example, in an A for an ideas, you are going to need to support your idea with insightful reasoning and compelling evidence. The words insightful and compelling are very, very strong adjectives. This is someone whose paragraph is very, very thoughtful, considers all sides of the argument, and really leaves the reader convinced of what they're trying to prove. Compare that to, for a C, this person just used adequate reasoning and evidence. Adequate is a word that just means it was good enough, but it doesn't leave you very convinced. You can see their argument, but you're not necessarily convinced. Okay, so take a second to look at this rubric, and then we're going to go over to Student A and see how they did. We're going to start with ideas. The first thing that I noticed when I was reading this document for ideas was that this person uses, as their evidence, they use this dog attack. They're talking about how if there are more street lights in Hayward, then this person wouldn't have gotten attacked by a dog. Now, for me, dog attacks are a pretty rare occurrence, and if I'm trying to convince people to get new lighting in Hayward, I'm not so sure that one example of a neighbor who's been attacked by a dog is going to convince me that streetlights are the best use of our money. This person also references the fact that it would prevent less danger, but really what I'm looking for as a reader here is to explain what this other kind of danger would be. Would streetlights reduce crime? Would they shed light on dark alleyways where things would be happening that the community wouldn't want? So what I'm looking here is for this author to be a little bit more explanatory with their reasoning. What are these other forms of danger? And because this is only one small isolated example, I'm going to put this ideas as having adequate reasoning and evidence, which means that I can understand where they're coming from, but it doesn't necessarily leave me thinking, yes, streetlights are the best use of our money in Hayward. But now let's go down to organization. Now, in order for a student to receive a B in organization, we need ideas that are fully developed. Now, can we say that this argument is fully developed if what we are really left thinking is that we wish we had more explanation or more examples? I wouldn't say so. I'd say that in order for it to be fully developed, I need to see a little bit more commentary and a little bit more explanation of, besides these isolated incidents, how streetlights would really impact the community. So, if it's not going to be in the B range, it certainly can't be in the A range. So I'm going to go this way and look down in the C range. I'll notice that it says the paragraph includes a topic sentence, evidence, and commentary. Looking here, I can say that's true. This person does make a very clear thesis statement or topic sentence, which is that we should have more street lighting. I'm not confused about what this person thinks. Now, Also in organization, you'll see that both an A and a B use transition sentences very effectively. This says it needs at least 2 transition words. Now, a transition word would be things that allow a reader to go from one idea to the next. For example, also allows you to build your argument with more ideas, and thus, which allows you to show causality. Because of this, therefore that. That's what we use thus for. So this person used 2 transition words, and they use them fairly effectively. There is an issue with a sentence fragment right here. But because they did have at least 2 transition words that allowed some shifts in ideas, I'm going to give this student a B for their organization. So to review, that's going to be a C for ideas, which would be about a 75. And for organization, I'm going to give them an 85. Okay? And now we are entering into the last section of their rubric, which is use of language. You can think about this as spelling, as grammar, as issues with confusing wording. And when I was reading this paragraph, I was noticing some things about use of language. I was noticing things like we are not remembering to capitalize some keywords, which shows me perhaps grammar and spelling is one area of growth. I also noticed that there's a fairly considerably large run-on sentence in here. There should be some punctuation with periods to break up this long sentence. Other than that, the wording is pretty appropriate. It says here that the diction is appropriate for an academic audience. I would agree with that. I don't see a lot of slang in here or words that wouldn't really fit into an academic writing. Really, this person's primary area for growth would be their punctuation and their capitalization. So, because it is appropriate for an academic audience, but the writer only demonstrates mostly correct spelling and basic command of conventions, I'm going to put it somewhere between a B and a C. Now, if you look at the percentages up here, that would be at about an 80%. So I'm going to give an 80% here. Okay, so you've now graded all 3 parts of this person's paragraph based on our rubric. And what you're going to do now is average these 3 numbers, which you can do very quickly, either with a calculator or by hand. Let's do it by hand just so we can see how that works. 24, 240 divided by 3. This is an 80%, which you can put here. And if we look up here, an 80% is a very low B. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. We have just graded a student sample on a rubric. What you're going to do now is you're going to turn and you are going to grade your own rubric or grade your own piece of writing using this rubric.